What we're looking to do in TAFE New South Wales is work out exactly how virtual reality will be used in learning and training. A big part of the technology is understanding exactly how it's going to be delivered inside these courses. Is it going to be something that is used throughout a course? Is it going to be used in particular areas? We see the technology being supplementary to practical training, but also an opportunity for online students in particular to be able to engage with physical interactions with a particular subject matter. Yeah, my name's Joe Millward. I'm the Innovation Manager at the TAFE Digital Lab. So the lab's actually developed about 10 or 12 applications over the last 2 years. Just recently though, we've delivered 8 virtual and augmented reality applications that are prototypes. These have been picked certain disciplines, certain courses, so everything from childcare to lighting, stage lighting to construction.
I'm Chris Pracey, Head of Skills Point Infrastructure, Energy and Construction for TAFE New South Wales. So the benefits of using VR for students, if I use the example of work health and safety where they can undergo a full site induction, we can do a whole model of whatever their work site is going to be before they move on to it, then that is so much better than them being taught laws and regs on paper and doing simulations that can in no way match that environment. From a teacher and an industry point of view, it also means that before they're allowed to use really expensive assets, that they get to practice virtually.
Hi, I'm Leah Simmons and I'm an Industry Relationship Lead for Innovative Manufacturing, Robotics and Science Skills Point. Virtual reality offers this amazing opportunity where we can simply update the virtual environment to the latest equipment rather than going through the issues and the challenges that registered training organisations have in terms of purchasing capital equipment.
I'm Greg Higgins, I'm the head of the Digital Learning Lab for TAFE New South Wales. So virtual reality has come quite a long way in the last few years, so it's evolving all of the time and it's certainly becoming a lot more affordable for educational institutions in particular to adopt the technology. In the TAFE New South Wales Digital Lab, we're very passionate about where virtual reality can sit in an organisation like ours. But we're very careful to maintain what we call the authenticity in VR. VR is not for every single subject. There's a lot of things that you can do without needing to build a completely immersive environment. People talk about learning by doing. VR is a really powerful tool for that because you're actually involving your body in the learning experience. So the purpose of this experiment for us at TAFE was to really evaluate how effective can virtual reality be in helping a student achieve a learning outcome. We really wanted to test that and we really wanted to have a way that we can actually see if a student goes through a VR training exercise, does it actually help them remember, does it help them perform better in a test? And we won't know until we actually do some of these tests.
The reason we engaged a third party was to make sure there wasn't any bias. I've got a great relationship with WeDiscover. They actually helped us identify some of the considerations we had in regards to when we started designing these applications. So it was great to have a partnership with them again and understand exactly how we'd frame the testing. They did a great job with us on that.
I'm Warren Wong and I'm a co-founder and lead researcher at WeDiscover. So the way we set up this experiment for TAFE New South Wales for this VR piece was pretty simple in essence. Essentially get a group of people who are exposed to the VR side of the experiment and get a second group who's not exposed to the VR, so just doing the traditional pen and paper type of learning and then seeing how they do in comparison. We had 3 further scenarios to work with, which TAFE New South Wales provided for us. So these scenarios were all revolved around trades that they actually had courses around, so around plumbing and around welding and around protective equipment. So we recruited a bunch of students, 18 in total, and basically the testing occurred in 2 distinct stages. So the first stage was essentially about them learning about the material. One group was given the VR, the Oculus Quest headset to learn all about a particular scenario, like let's say plumbing or welding, and then comparing that to the non-VR people who weren't given the headset. So they had to actually learn the material through just traditional pen and paper.
My name is Matt Hurley and I'm a senior UX researcher at WeDiscover. Throughout each assessment we had a checklist essentially that we were watching to see the students whether they met the different requirements on the checklist. So the plumbing experience, we were looking at the steps that they were completing as well as the order that they were completing them in, and the welding and PPE experiences, we were looking at the number of items that they managed to identify out of the total available.
in the second part, when we did assess them, we had to actually help build and mimic the actual VR environments that we helped set up, or whatever environment that we set up in the pen and paper test. And then actually getting participants to come through and unguided, because it is an assessment, seeing how well they do and how well they actually remember the different processes and steps, and then actually assessing that. In the end, the results were overwhelmingly in favour of the VR participants. For plumbing, VR scored 94% in contrast to pen and paper, which was 54%. So what those percentages mean is that the 94% is based on two things, is how many items or steps that they correctly identified, as well as did they identify in the correct order. For the second one, which is personal protective equipment, the VR scored 91% in contrast to 52% for traditional pen and paper. So for that particular scenario, it was based on how many different items that they managed to correctly identify, and the score is just directly based on that. And the same goes for welding. The score was 85% for VR in contrast to 59% to traditional paper. And the scoring mechanism was exactly the same as for PPE, which is we're trying to see how many items they are correctly identifying.
Look, we're really happy with the results of the testing of the VR prototypes that we've rolled out. I'd have to say, we weren't too surprised at the results, in the sense that we were very careful in the way these experiences were crafted, was very particular to make sure that we could actually measure our learning outcomes.
I think it's really important for us to ensure that we measure everything that we do. So, I mean, it's great anecdotal feedback that we've got, and now we've got some concrete feedback already. But if we don't continually measure and continually improve what we're trying to do, we're not going to know if we're hitting the mark every time.
So it's important to remember that the testing that we've just finished for the initial prototypes was really phase one, of our approach. And not only did we build the prototypes, but we also built, the frameworks and the underlying architecture, I guess, as to how we engage with the subject matter experts. How we, what our approach to design is. So we were sort of building multiple things at the same time. And I think as we move to the next phase of our exploration here, really looking forward to, I guess, increasing the scale of the testing as well. Now we can focus, we've got the frameworks built, we've got the architecture built, now we can purely focus on, let's get a wider participant group in here and really make sure that, we're covering the diversity of the cohort, we're covering variety and scenarios as well.
I think I see the future of VR in TAFE New South Wales being an open opportunity. I think there's a lot of scope for what we can do. The great thing is we've proven here that this is an effective tool to use for training and learning. The big part for me is now what's next? Where should we focus? Where do we see the quick wins that we can get huge amounts of value? And then also getting it in the hands of teachers and students as often as we can, and trying to work out a mechanism to broaden the reach of the technology, and working with our ICT group, working with our senior management team to ensure that every student's getting access to this technology.
Doing it actually physically, even though it's not technically physical, it feels like it is. So I think that would definitely help you remember.
Memorizing is my weakness.
Right, okay.
But if I'm doing it, let's say firsthand, that's actually pretty good. I'm going to remember that.
Yeah, great.
But looking at a textbook, taking pictures, it will take me 3 or 4 times to completely memorize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If it's something physical, then 100% this is a much better way of teaching it, because you're actually seeing and doing it, rather than someone else telling you what to do. Oh, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. So, yeah.
Being able to do things hands-on and felt like actually being in, doing what you'd have to do in that situation. I feel like that's pretty cool. That's pretty helpful.